This is Savio. I've been seeking answers to some of life's most perplexing questions my entire life. In 2014, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and ever since, I realized my calling existed outside of what I knew to be familiar. This podcast is your home for survivors like myself and those who are searching to find meaning to their why. In Season 2, the show includes a mix of coaching sessions followed immediately by interviews with those from all walks of life who have been successful in the business, marketing, coaching, and financial worlds. The intent is to show the human experience in its rawest form so that others may glean insight. Nothing is rehearsed or has been edited. As a board-certified wellness coach, my job is to ask the deep questions of those trying to make sense of their place in this fractured world. I believe life speaks to us in different ways. Many of us listen but don't know how or where to begin. As someone who has crossed the bridge between life and death, I say simply, begin where you are now and get busy living. If you liked today's episode, I would appreciate it if you could share it and subscribe. Be sure to tag me at The Human Resolve so I can reciprocate in kind. So without further ado, welcome to the Human Resolve podcast. Author and stage 3 breast cancer survivor April Capil has used her painful experiences to serve those eager to get their lives back on track. Once her biggest cheerleader, she now wrestles with a friendship that has taken a dramatic turn. Knowing that the answer always lies within, she looks to the future and pictures a much lighter and sunnier vision. Hi, April. It's good to see you.
Hi, Savia. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Wonderful. So what would you like coaching on today?
Well, one of the things that's been coming up a lot, not just for me, but for a lot of my friends, is how the pandemic and, other just life things have changed friendships. I have a longtime friend, and I'm struggling to connect with her during the pandemic, but I feel like our relationship has been changing the last few years. And I know that this happens kind of like as you approach middle age. Sometimes it happens if you are approaching a time in your life when your friends are getting married and having kids and you're not, or, for whatever reason, maybe you're choosing that, or maybe you just haven't found someone that you feel you could with. But in this particular friendship, I found that the pandemic has brought out a lot more of the introvert side of her, a lot more negativity. And I find that our conversations are getting more difficult to have. We are sharing fewer and fewer views just on life in general and where we see our future going. I'm not even 50, and we're both the same age, and yet I see my future as full of opportunity and full of chances to learn new things and grow just as a human. And when speaking of human resolve, it's like my resolution is to always live my best life going forward. But I feel more and more in our conversations that she only sees life getting worse and more frustrating, and the world getting harder and harder to live in. And I hear her seeing evidence in the world that things are getting worse, and it makes our bids for connection very hard. And so I'm just kind of looking for some coaching on maybe, is there a way that I can see this differently? Is there a way that I can approach this relationship differently? How do I know when it's time to let go of a friendship? Because it's not that it's not just not serving me, but maybe it's not serving either one of us. I, especially as a health coach in my day job, I know that, I have clients who are struggling with the same kind of things. And sometimes it's like, they're on this side of the politics and I'm on this side, or they're on this side of, something like vaccination and I'm on this side. And friendships can thrive and grow despite that. But I'm wondering if there's a way that I can look at this differently or think about it differently. Or how do I know that it's maybe time for this friendship to go, and that's okay?
So what I'm hearing is you sort of would like coaching on sort of figuring out how to navigate a friendship that at this point seems a little challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
So what would be a great outcome for today?
I would love to feel at peace, either with the decision to let this friendship go or to have a plan for moving forward with it in a way that works for both of us.
So either to let it go or to have a plan that you can move forward with.
Yes, and to feel okay regardless of what that path is.
So what do you love about the friendship?
You know, it's funny. I love that. I think that's actually, you hit the nail on the head. It's funny. It's such a simple question, but what I used to love about the friendship was the feeling that despite all the challenges she's faced in her life, she's capable of moving forward in life with hope. And that's what I really feel, has been missing lately, is that sense of, like, for example, when we were in college, we met in college, and in our 20s, she had been through a series of rough relationships that were, not very healthy. And she just kept putting herself out there. And she eventually started dating and married a man who I feel is really, really good for her. Her persistence in the face of adversity, as you know, as a cancer survivor, I'm a survivor, and the willingness to feel hope and to wake up every day with hope is really, really important to me. And that's, I feel like that's a challenge of like depression and anxiety and frustration with the world, is it really erodes hope. So I think that's what I always loved about our relationship, was our bond through, well, it might suck now, but we'll get through it. And that piece has really felt like it's been missing.
Have you expressed to her these sort of feelings?
I haven't. I haven't had a conversation where I've said, one of the things I love about our friendship is, your begrudging persistence to find optimism and good, which is something that I share. And I really felt like that's been missing. And I think the reason why I haven't had that conversation is because I'm afraid that she'll say, well, I've been looking for it and it's not there, so I just give up.
And if she says that to you, how would you respond?
Well, the coach in me would say, how have you been looking? Or why do you feel it's not there? And I feel like she would have a lot of evidence. Human beings, we're really good forensic detectives, right? Like,
yeah.
If you look for something, you'll find it.
Yes.
And I guess it's so hard to support a friend and not want to change them. That's what I really struggle with. I don't want to have a conversation that sounds like, I like the way you used to be. But I think that's the truth.
So can you describe to me how she saw the world?
When we were first friends, she was that friend who was kind of like sardonic and sarcastic, and we liked a lot of the same movies, and the same kind of things made us laugh, and even though she had had some trauma in her childhood and I had some trauma in our childhood, I felt like we leaned on humor a lot to, like, not just let it go, but not let it define us. And when I was when I was diagnosed with cancer, um, she was definitely there for me and supportive, and she would send me cards, to make me laugh. And in the last couple of years, when we've had conversations, they've revolved around how frustrated and disappointed and annoyed she's been with life. And I think that my bids for humor have sort of fallen flat. And it's maybe it's that the low is like too low of a low to to lift up out of. Or maybe it's, the mountain of evidence. Maybe it's felt like a slope, not quite like a level, where it's like we get down, we pick each other up, we get down, we pick each other up. Feels like it's harder and harder to meet in that middle where, yeah, things are rough, but like I'm okay. I'm managing. Yeah. I don't know. Is that the question? Did I answer the question you asked?
Yeah. How do you think she, or how do you feel she views the world right now?
I think that she views the world as a smaller, darker place that is growing smaller and darker. And I don't know how to help her. I don't know how to connect with her. And I think the reason why is because my perspective is, yeah, the world got really small and really dark for a hot minute there, but now it's opening up, and we're getting back to normal. And I think that she found comfort in being able to work from home and not having to deal with people in the office and other humans, and that disconnection became a comfort. And maybe now she might be either afraid or resentful or, annoyed at having to go back to the world and the people that she'll have to interact with. And I work from home also, but I'm really looking forward to being out in the world like we were before. And I don't think she is. Even when I've brought up coming to visit, she has sort of been like, even though she's vaccinated, her husband's vaccinated, I'm vaccinated, there's been a real resistance, even with Zoom calls, where vaccination isn't an issue, but she kind of sticks to text. So there's a sense of withdrawal from the world. And the part of me that's known this person since we were like 18, I want to pull her out, but I don't know if she wants to come out. I feel like Orpheus a little bit.
What qualities do you think she admires about you?
That's a good question. I think as long as we've known each other, she has appreciated my sunny disposition. And she jokes sometimes about, her darkness and my lightness. But I feel very self-conscious of my lightness and my sunniness lately, as if it's like an affront almost, or a dismissal of what she might be going through. And I find that that sort of feeds on itself. And then I get afraid to say, how are you? And I don't know if it's because, now I think about it, I don't know if it's because I'm afraid of the answer, whether the answer will be something to pacify me that's not true, or something that's true that I don't know how to help with. Maybe it's not my role to help. But I know that, you know, I really do struggle with being present when I can't help someone. And maybe it's not my role. Maybe it's just to make a space where it's safe for them to be sad or angry or frustrated. Like as a coach, you know, how do you do that?
Yeah.
When someone's not motivated or motivating themselves, how do you help them find that motivation? Because they're a mere presence. Like the fact that we still talk, that she's still texting me back, tells me that she's wants me in her life or wants to be in my life. But I don't know why. Why? Maybe that is why. Even if she's not prepared to be sunny, she welcomes the presence of a sunny disposition, because it might be the only sun she's got right now. I don't know.
You mentioned a lot of sort of differences that's sort of striking right now in your life. What do you find is that you both have in common at this moment?
You know, I'm struggling. I think that's the hard part, is that we've had less and less in common. Like almost every year that goes by. And the pandemic has really kind of exacerbated that, has really highlighted that. Sometimes it's simple things. You know, I think what we have in common is we both like the Golden Girls. That's what we've got in common. We both like the Golden Girls. But even simple things like the films and television and movies and books that we read are becoming more and more disparate. I read a book that I was like, oh my God, I think you would love this. And she hated it. And I was like, I feel like I don't even know you anymore. But
so what would she say in this moment? How would what would her picture it be?
That's funny. You know what I wish Sophia would say is, she would say, picture it, Sicily, 2024. The pandemic is behind us. We're all enjoying a delicious bowl of dairy-free pasta somewhere in Italy. A nice glass of wine. I think she would look to the future. But maybe that's the thing is that I need to do, is to really look to the past and remember the moments that we've had and remind myself of our connections, less so than our disconnections. It's very, I've talked to a lot of friends that have faced the same challenge. They're like, it's only been 18 months and I feel like I don't even know this person anymore. Like, were they always that person? Has the last 18 months changed them? And sometimes you can explain it with life transition. Like, oh, my friend had a baby and now her whole life is the baby and she's never available for happy hour. Like, that's totally understandable. Well, you know what? I got news for you. Every party is going to have a baby area from here on out. I remember that in my 20s, we had a couple in our friend circle who got married and had a kid. And I was sitting with a mutual friend at this potluck, and he was like, what's with that little cordoned off area, like the play area at this party? I thought I was coming to a party, and I looked at him and I was like, oh, every party's gonna have a play area from here on out, buddy. Like, you're not 22 anymore. Um, but yeah, it's maybe that's the secret, is kind of like reminding myself of what we have in common instead of what we no longer have in common.
So if you were reminding yourself of what you have in common, what would be 3 things you would need from her?
I think I would need to know that this is something she's coming out on the other side of, because I'm coming out on the other side of it. And I'm not willing to stay in a place where I see things as never getting better. As a cancer survivor, I am definitely on the side of getting busy living. I'll never forget when about 12 years ago, I'm 13 years out from cancer. And when I was maybe a year and a half out, I was talking to a nurse who was really great in helping me kind of like craft a survivorship plan. And I was overwhelmed with fear at the thought of getting my chest port taken out. Because all I could think of was, what if it comes back? What if it comes back and I have to put this port back in? And she sat me down and she said, what if it doesn't? And I think that, it opened up a future to me that I had been scared to think about until that moment, because I had been in cancer land for so long. And I feel like that. I feel like our friendship has been in a place of darkness and uncertainty and disconnection. And I think that if I knew that it could be in that Sicily 2024 world, then I could make it through, this hard part. But if I had a conversation with her and we disagreed on whether things can get better, then it's like, then I think I don't think we'd be serving each other anymore. I think I would be a constant, I don't know, I don't know. It's hard to maintain a friendship with someone when you see the world differently. Just not disagreeing on, whether Black Panther is the best Marvel movie ever, but thinking that something in the world is relevant or not relevant is a bigger disconnection, I think.
So if you drew that line in the sand and she wasn't able to follow you, what would life look like for you?
I think I would lose. I think I would lose an old friend. I would lose someone who who has been a witness to a lot of my life. But I think I would also lose the burden of feeling like I need to lift up someone who doesn't want to be lifted up. Like I'm a firm believer that you can't make anybody feel anything. And also, I think I would also relieve the pressure on her of being in a place that she doesn't want to be in order to be my friend. I think that's what's been in the back of my mind too, is if you feel like you are, satisfied being where you are, like, who might expect or demand that you be different to stay in my world? It's not fair. I've had friends have that conversation with their parents. Someone who's like always going to be in your life, but you have to sort of set a healthier boundary that doesn't force or expect them to be different and doesn't force or expect you to be different. It's kind of the world that I'm in right now. When you say what would it be like, is I think it would be where I am now, where I'm limiting my interactions to limit my exposure to a conversation that's not really fulfilling for either one of us. But yeah, it's very... I think there is a part of me that would like to have the conversation to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding something. Like, are you getting anything out of this? Am I annoying you with my sunniness? And, comments about how the world's getting better? Am I an echo in your chamber that you really don't want to hear? Or maybe that's the problem. I'm not an echo. Maybe the problem is that she's not an echo. I don't know. But I do, I have friends who have differing opinions than me about where the world's going and what we need to move forward in it. But there is an element of kind of like doubt with all of them. Like, well, I could be wrong. And that's the space that I love, because in my own life, doubt has always been what saved me. Maybe I'm wrong about this being as bad as I think it is. And I think I would like to insert that doubt to a conversation and see if there's any shred of it. And if there isn't any shred of it, then I think I'll know. All right. It's kind of, I don't know if you've seen Wicked. Have you seen Wicked?
I have,
at
yeah.
all?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that moment where, Glinda and Elphaba kind of realize, like, oh, we're going down different paths. And she just says, I hope you're happy now that you're choosing this. And I like to have that moment, but I know that sometimes those moments only exist in the movies or Broadway shows.
I'm curious, you mentioned you've known her for a really long time. In thinking back of those moments and that friendship and the laughs and all the other experiences, if you was to embody that in your body, would that resonate anywhere in your body? That feeling?
Yeah. It's like, it's here. It's like my heart, my chest, my sternum. Which is funny that it's not. It doesn't feel like a weight on my back, which normally when I think of a burden, like that's where I feel the tension is, like my back and my neck. But.
And in the current situation you're in, does it still resonate in that same area for you right now?
It weighs in my heart, yes, definitely. It's like it feels like a pair of lead wings.
Lead wings. there a way to lighten that lead?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really, I think it's me letting this friendship go and being open to it coming back. But when I think of trying to carry it through to that other side, I just don't think I can do it by myself. Like, I think I need to know that she's willing to walk with me. And that lightens when I think that thought. It lightens the feeling.
So how would you hold yourself accountable to get that feeling magnified?
I think I would have to start by having that hard conversation of, one of the things I love about our friendship is that we've known each other so long, and you have always, shared with me this optimism despite adversity, which really helped me when I was going through cancer, because I didn't know if it was going to get any better. And I'm struggling because I've felt more and more disconnected from you during the pandemic. And to be honest, even before that, when you've been facing your own sort of like struggles in life. And I know that the last few years have not been easy. And I want to know if there's a way that I could have been better at being there for you that I'm missing, that has maybe been adding to my feeling of disconnection. And also what I do to be a better friend, because I miss the way that we were always able to like share that vision of the light, at the end of the tunnel. And I still see that light, but I feel like you don't, and I don't know if it's because you can't, or because you're really struggling with something that maybe you don't feel like you can talk to me about, because I'm always, I have this perpetual need to look on the bright side and reframe, and I want to make sure that you know that I don't need you to be, a certain way to still be friends. But I do see the world as getting better, and I'm kind of unwilling to budge on that front in terms of my own worldview. And if we're just friends, who differ in that, and we can still laugh over the Golden Girls, then that's okay. But I think maybe that'll open up the conversation to, nope, now that I'm really glad you brought it up, this is not serving me. And, yeah, But I'm willing to leave space for having seen something wrong or misinterpreted something, I guess.
Is there a way that you can reframe the conversation so that it lands easier to her?
That's what I need help with. Are there ways I could reframe the conversation so it's less about me needing something and more about maybe me helping her, or maybe not about me at all?
Do you have an intuitive sense of what she wants?
I don't. Not anymore. I feel increasingly like I don't know her.
So when do you think you're going to start with this conversation with her?
My default is always, how are you? I've been trying to connect with her most recently by sharing things that made me think of her. I saw this and I thought of you. Oh, I just read this book. Oh, I just saw that episode of The Golden Girls. I've been rewatching it. And my bids for connection have been met with sometimes rejection and sometimes dismissal. Like, oh, I heard about that book. I don't think it's for me. Oh, I tried to watch that television show and the main girl is really annoying. And sometimes it's just met with ha and a smiley face. And I think to myself, if this was a dude, he would have been off the roster and blocked months ago. But I think I'm in a place where I'm waiting for things to get better, and they're not. And I don't want to ghost somebody that I've known for 30 years. You know? I'd like to have that conversation. And maybe it's, I'm really struggling with something and I need your advice. Maybe that's a better opening than how are you? Even though it's very me focused.
I love that. But I think this is probably maybe a good time to transition into the interview section. Do you feel complete?
I do. I feel like I have a place to start with that's coming from a good place. And I feel lighter in my heart thinking about it. Thank you.
Awesome. Sure. So April Capil, please tell my audience more about you, what you do, and who you are.
Well, I am a health coach and a software project manager, and I help young adult cancer survivors kind of navigate that world post-treatment to set small goals and help them kind of build a new normal. Young adult survivors are 18 to 40. I work usually with people who are out of treatment because that I find is the time where I can be of the most service. When you're navigating a world post-cancer, it's a little tricky. It's not like the world you left. Some people say that it feels like you lost your place in line when you got back in and everyone is like 3 steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
I also help pre-diabetic women integrate healthy lifestyle changes so that they can avoid a diabetes diagnosis. And what I do with both people really is I start with things like toxic stress, right? I have 6 pillars in my practice that I use. Sleep, exercise, nutrition, meditation are kind of like 4 things that you can really start with to combat toxic stress. And then what I add are self-care practices to focus on your mental health and kind of encourage that self-love. And then taking a look at healthy relationships, which is part of why I wanted to talk about this in the call, because it's sometimes a blind spot, where you don't realize that, gosh, I'm getting 8 hours of sleep, and I'm exercising every day, and I'm eating my vegetables and doing my 10-minute, meditations, but I just feel like something is not right in my world. And sometimes that's like your partner or your children if you're older, or maybe your children if you're younger, or friendships that, you don't realize are affecting all that good work that you're doing. They might be impairing it a little bit. Maybe you're going on a walk every day, but it's with someone who's, complaining for the entire walk, and it's draining you. So I try to help my clients start with those 6 pillars, and then set goals around moving that needle a little bit.
What have you found to be major pain points in the clients that you serve?
Oh, putting themselves first, allowing themselves to take care of themselves. Even with cancer patients, you find that someone has spent their entire journey being strong for everybody else. I'm fine. I've got it. No, you don't need to worry about me. No, you don't need to come to my chemo. Like, I'm sleeping most of the time. Oh, no, you don't need to come with me to try on wigs. Like, it's no big deal. And then this, the same woman is struggling with something as simple as her hair growing back and not having to manage it, and being self-conscious about her appearance, or being afraid that her husband doesn't find her attractive anymore, and not knowing how to have that conversation about, like, well, after 6 months of chemo, I don't have a libido. And not really knowing how that is connecting to all these different places of her life. She's not sleeping because she doesn't feel pretty, something I've heard, which is so random, but it happens. Or she hasn't exercised in 6 months and her body feels weak all the time. But the beautiful thing, though, is that I find that connecting to yourself, whether it's through meditation or self-care practices, or just wrapping your brain around the idea that it's okay for you to come first. It doesn't mean nobody else comes on the list. It just means that you come first, and then everything else comes after that. That has an exponential return on investment, because once you're taking care of yourself, you can be there for everyone else.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about you don't need to come to my chemo, and I got it. That's totally me. One thing cancer taught me was vulnerability. What have you found, just for someone listening right now who's really kind of in the struggle of feeling like they're all alone with this process, or maybe they have a friend who's, they don't know how to reach out to them about it?
Well, I would say that your friend is probably wondering the same thing. They're probably wondering how you are, and they're afraid to ask because you never talk about it. And letting them know that it's safe to talk about it might start with something like, if it's comfortable for you, you could broach it like it's a friend that you ran into at a doctor's appointment. Or I've used this trick. I was very afraid of people seeing me sick when I was going through chemo. And I thought, I'll see them and then I'll have no eyebrows and then they'll feel sorry for me. Or I'll see somebody I haven't seen since, I posted on Facebook that I was diagnosed with cancer. And I know that what they're wondering is, how are you? But they're afraid to ask, what was that like? And I would say, I just ran into this woman that I knew when she was going through treatment. And she was saying that it's been so nice for her to reconnect with all of her friends who haven't seen her since she was diagnosed. And of course, my friend, it's always like, the therapist. So I have this friend who's, it's like, that's always the way that you approach a conversation that's difficult. And I was telling her how much I was looking forward to seeing you because I haven't seen you since I was diagnosed. And that opens it up for that person to say, well, how are you? How's it been? Because they know that you feel safe talking about it. So I 100% have used that trick and suggested that clients use that trick. Like, so doctor, I have a friend who has this rash. Like, you can say, you can put it in the third person so that friend feels comfortable or family member feels comfortable saying, well, it's funny that you mentioned that. I've been wondering about you.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for participating in my interview series with Authority Magazine and Thrive Global. I survived cancer, and here is how I did it. What was your reaction? What was the reaction with family and friends when you posted that? Because I know it's not an easy story to tell, and a few people asked me, are you going to tell your story? And I think for me, reading all those stories is giving me the courage to do it.
Really? And there have been so many. I think that the reaction is I have a lot of new friends who don't know that story. And so they were like, oh, I never knew like the details. I knew you were a survivor and I knew it was breast cancer, but I didn't know what you went through. And I even had a friend who I've known for like 7 years who was like, what was that like finding that lump? Like she had read the story, but she wanted to hear from me because she didn't know the details. And I was so happy to have a place to share them because I've written books about kind of like how to make it through a tough time and how to make lemonade out of lemons, but I don't go in the details in my books because they're not really cancer books. They're more about like how to survive, how to not lose your head when you're going through a disaster, and then how to pick up the pieces after. But I was so thankful for the platform to be able to share kind of like the nitty gritty. And then my friends and colleagues that I worked with were like, I didn't know that. So it was great.
Yeah. What do you feel in everyone's story and everyone's, everyone's thought on this is different, but what do you feel cancer has shown you or taught you or allowed you to see?
I feel like, and I said this in the article, but like, I feel like cancer made me realize the importance of paying attention. Pay attention. And also that this is an hourglass. This life that we live in. It starts when we're born. And that sand doesn't go in reverse. Like it's only going in one direction. And I never forget that. And it forever changed the lens through which I see life. That's part of our earlier discussion about this friend. It's like, how many grains am I willing to spend on this? I'm really a person who does not like to waste time because I know that, I talk about it in one of my books. It's like that moment in Superman when Christopher Reeve like gives up his powers so that he can be with Lois Lane, and then the guy punches him out in the diner, and he's like looking at his blood. That's what cancer did for me. I was like, oh man, I'm mortal. Oh, I'm really mortal. Oh wow, this is for real. It's like Jumanji. I have one life left, and that's it.
So, you mentioned sort of this reference to an hourglass. So what would be 3 pieces of advice for us to use our time more wisely?
Oh, get off your phone. Spend time with humans. I have a 3.5-year-old nephew that I just love. And he does not, it's like, when I am with him, like my phone is put away because it almost reminds me of like our town where Emily like goes back and she's like, it moves so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. And when I think about my life flashing before my eyes in that moment, my sister's ex-husband used to call it the God tape, when your life flashes before your eyes. Yeah. I just want to see connecting with other people that I love. So I would say that's my first piece of advice is like, just remember that like this is not a DVR. Like you're not going to get to go back to that moment. Really spend as much time in the present as you can. And the second piece of advice I would say is think about how you want to spend this hourglass, this 100 years. Like right now, I'm 47, and if I'm lucky, I'll get another 47 years on Earth, maybe 40, but I'm going to shoot for 47. And like I I I think about it like a vacation. Like there are so many things that I want to do. I'm only going to have 47 more Christmases, 47 more Thanksgivings. Like I do a reassessment every year on my birthday to be like, how did I do this year? What do I want next year? Where's my 5-year goal? And I don't think too far ahead. I try to keep it 3 to 5 years ahead because life has a way of throwing you curveballs, which brings me to my third point, which is practice being flexible. Practice rolling with the punches. Sometimes you open a closet door and there's like Narnia on the other side. And instead of being like, nope, embrace the wonder of being surprised by life. And don't always assume that a surprise is a bad thing. If it wasn't for cancer, I literally wouldn't have my nephew. Like so many things I think all the time of almost like that movie Paycheck. How many, like, if future me knew that everything was going to be okay, what would she say to present me? She'd be like, relax. Nothing is ever wrong. Everything is learning. Like, all experiences lead to your growth. Like,
that's lovely.
You're never on the wrong path. You're always on the only path, and it's always the right path. That's what I would tell people. Mm-hmm.
So what would you, so where can my audience find more about you? You're filled with so much wisdom. So they have to go.
Thank you. Well, my website is aprilcapil.com. My books are on most e-retailers and including Audible. I have one book on Audible. In health coaching, I do Zoom and in person. My favorite thing to do is actually walking during a session because they've done studies about how moving through space and being in nature helps you process trauma. And one of my favorite books, the book I've lately been recommending to everyone is The Deepest Well by Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris. She's California's Surgeon General. And it talks about how trauma is the root and it's present, childhood trauma, in so many people who are suffering from disease later in life. And they're just now beginning to make these connections. But that's a lot. I post on Instagram. I'm on Instagram under actually The Possible Diet is my my latest book and my public Instagram. So I post a lot of stuff on there. I'm on Goodreads and I recommend all my favorite books, and sometimes I include the notes. So that's kind of a nice feature of Goodreads. Anyway, those are all the places you can find me.
Awesome, April. Well, I really thoroughly enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Sure. Thank you again.
All right.
Hi there. I really hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast episode of The Human Resolve. If you feel that others may enjoy this episode as well, please share socially at The Human Resolve. They can also visit my website, thehumanresolve.com, where I offer one-on-one coaching sessions, daily prompts to move you in the right direction, synced directly to your smartphone, and a subscription to my weekly newsletter where I probe into the secrets from living smarter to feeding your 3 brains. If you could also help me out and give me a review and rating on this platform, because I do care what you have to say, I would really appreciate it. Now, get out there, my friends, and get busy living.